right? In hindsight, because I feel that the more we're pushing people to hustle and to say you need it now, the more it's just going to become, people are going to get more overwhelmed. Anxiety will go up. Failure will also be looked at as something like, as much as we say failure is a stepping stone to success and all that stuff, you also need time to process things between failures. And if we don't do that, you're just going to keep running. And at some point, you're just going to be so exhausted, you won't know what to do.
Today's guest is someone who's also a podcaster and a content creator whose journey is nothing short of inspiring because of his constant urge to learn. The co-founder and chief content officer of The Glitch, Varun Dugirala. Every time I speak to Varun or consume his content, one of the first questions that comes to my mind is how does he manage to do this all in a day's time? Like run a company, create content, be with family, and take care of his own self, by regular exercising, etc. And which is exactly what we spoke in today's episode, learning and structuring so many things going on in your life while life goes on. Let me formally tell you, welcome to Questions I Wanted to Ask. So happy to have you.
Happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this chat.
Same here. I have to tell you this, that I think when I started consuming audio, right, as through podcast, of course, we are like everyone, we all go to those international formats and all of that stuff. And this was probably the time that I think you just started advertising. Is that 1.5 years? I don't know exactly, like somewhere around that.
2018-ish, sometime late 2018 is when I started. So yes, a little over two odd years now.
So this is also this is the time when kind of I started listening to a lot of international this thing, and you were the first, I guess, Indian creator I started like listening to from a podcast perspective. And I used to message you a lot, like after hearing a couple of episodes and saying, okay, this resonated, this thing, and I was like, and I used to always think that what a cool job Varun's doing, especially from a marketing, advertising, and the ecosystem perspective. And now now having you on the podcast, and of course mine is not very industry specific and all of that, I was like, wow, this is like circle of life, because
I remember those chats because I remember even the early days, and even now, one of the things I enjoy the most is when you get a message from someone who's listened to it and found something of value, and so also helps you kind of figure out, okay, what people really like. Sometimes it'll surprise you, the episodes they like, the points they like, and so I remember those messages.
Yeah, and also I think now I'm very new entrant to this entire creation world. I've been indirectly associated all these years. But it's just that happens to that I decided now to say, okay, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. But it's interesting because I think your journey is also something I resonate very, very closely with, right? Having worked on the creation side of things indirectly, got commissioned, stuff like that. I mean, those who don't know, commissioning means content, commissioning of the content piece. And then, looking at your journey, moving from audio to various things you're doing. Of course, our genres are slightly different that ways. But, I feel that, oh my God, there's somebody to kind of, I could resonate, I could look up to, I could kind of learn so much. And that's why I keep, sharing so many things and saying, okay, oh, this is interesting, that is interesting. So thank you for doing that.
I'm happy it helps, right? In whichever small way possible is, because I feel that, there was always this thing that the creator piece was very like young person's job to call that. But yeah. And at some point, I feel there's so much value you can actually give by just putting content out there. And and at some point, you don't realize that it's not about, and I say this to even like, the newer creators who I chat with, right? Who are like, okay, I want to be a YouTuber. Like sometimes chat with some of these 15, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds who want to be YouTubers. And I'm like, you have to be in no rush. Like I'm almost 40 and I feel like I have a lot of time to do this. You're not 20 yet. You have it's a long way.
In fact, when I started talking about the world of creators and what actually goes into making. And you would have seen that I'm putting a lot of this on through my Instagram and through my other social media pages. That was the intention, because I, having worked with with so many artists, so many creators, a lot of these gaming creators, etc., I realized they're all in so much of rush. Whereas what they don't realize is that any of the some of the most talented creators in the country today, whether it's a Jose, whether it's Tanmay, they have all gone years through that process of writing, and they have written shows and scripts which probably a lot of these guys don't even know about.
Yeah, totally. And
Right?
like you mentioned Tanmay, right? That's so interesting because Jose, because I remember him as Dr. Jose on radio before he even became a VJ. But Tanmay is a great example. Tanmay is was a
TV
writer
shows.
in
He's written
television.
TV. Yeah. I mean, so has Jose. So, I mean, look at Danish's journey. If you see, Malika was a
Said
copywriter.
Danish, that's funny. I got him on one of my podcasts, and he said that people kept calling him when the video started doing well in the pandemic, and he's calling him an overnight success. He's like, "मैं 10 साल से कर रहा हूँ."
10 साल.
It's like it's not an overnight success, but yeah, so true.
So, I mean, not to take away from the young creators who also get like really popular in maybe a month or 2 months and all of that. I mean, that's the beauty of social media. But I think some of the best talent in this country have taken years and years. And probably, I mean, if I look at your journey also, and I'm talking particularly as a creator, not as the businessman, right? You've been involved in creative or the process of creating, whether it was ads earlier or whether it was digital, media, etc. But now there's this sudden thing of saying or trying to say what you have learned all 3 years. And I kind of correlate because I'm going through that similar process, whatever. But tell me, now when there's so much going on, right? I think what first of all, what is going on? Like, so you're running a business, you're creating content. Of course, you have a home and family to be with, take care, look after, whatever. And then you as a person. I just want you to tell me what all is going on in your life.
So I'll go step by step. I started hosting Advertising is Dead, 2018, sometime second half of it. And at that time, it was a lot more complicated. If I think about it in hindsight, like literally finish work, drive an hour to the IBM studio, record over there, come back an hour, go an hour, and like in between at least an hour and a half if you look at like pre-chat, etc. So giving a decent chunk of time one evening of the week. Whereas now that recording is like 1 hour you schedule in like on Zoom. So if I actually say what I do now is that I do one episode per week of Advertising is Dead, about 135 episodes I think in now. I started hosting a podcast called Useless Information last year, which I brought back in a newer form, which is now called the Varun Duggi Show, which also evolved as a format from March to now. So I do two episodes of that a week, one on Mondays, one on Fridays. Both of them are solo episodes now. I found that simpler to do, and I thought it's an interesting format I've started to enjoy. It's just like short format, just audio blog format in that sense. So that happens on Mondays and Fridays. I have a plan for Wednesdays very soon, which will mostly be useless information.
It's very addictive.
Yeah. Also, because I really wanted to bring useless information back, but I wanted to bring it back in the shorter format, and then from time to time maybe have chats. So that will mostly be Wednesdays. I've also started to my YouTube channel started off as a very random thing to just put up the full form videos the podcast. I've actually enjoyed learning how vlogs work. So it's now mostly, hopefully, be at least 2 times a month, if not 4 times a month eventually. I also write a weekly newsletter, which started off weirdly enough when I was taking a 1 month break from Advertising is Dead, because I'm in the process of writing a book. And I wanted some form of public validation that people will read what I write. So I started a newsletter. So that happens like every Saturday morning. So every Saturday morning, it's scheduled out and it goes to everyone. So so I have content that goes out on Mondays, Tuesdays, soon Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Thursdays will mostly be when my YouTube videos will start coming out regularly. I flip that around most times. And Sundays are days off. Sundays are days off.
Yeah, I mean, I won't kind of buy in that they are days off, but only the output from an output perspective.
Yeah. And also, so but none of these take an exorbitant amount of time for me, to be very
Sure.
honest.
Sure.
I generally bank them out. So like advertising is that like I have like episodes recorded for the next 4 weeks already done.
Sure.
Varun Dugi show. I'm actually I do about 2 weeks at a shot. I record all the solo ones at a shot, and so that's pretty much done. So I try to bulk them. I bulk record them out. The only thing I try to do week on week is the newsletter, because I like that process of just like sitting on a Friday or a Thursday and sitting and writing that down. And the rest of the time goes for Glitch and home. And I think I can only do this because I'm working from home. I don't
Sure.
think I'd be able to do all of this if I was still going to an office. And had that commute time, had everything else in place. So some pros in that front, but yeah.
So if I have to understand this, you exercise for maybe hour a day. I'm trying to
Yeah,
kind
but-
of understand your day, right? You exercise on a day.
my day is very easy to explain. I have a very clearly,
Okay.
as much as possible, formatted out day.
Sure.
I wake up very early and not by out of choice. It became out of compulsion, because my older dog wakes me up at 5 a.m., between 5 and 6 a.m. to go take a leak. So I have to wake up. So what I started to do was I started waking up earlier. So I start my day a little early in that sense, right? So
What, 4:35?
no, I don't think I'm out of bed before 6:30, but that is generally what it is. And so I try to write the book, work on the book most days between that 6:30 to 8 a.m. period.
Sure.
I also journal once in a while, just for like processing what's in your head and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so post 8, honestly, I spend a lot of time like regular home stuff, right? Like hang with Leia. She wakes up around that time, so all that happens. Workout between 10:30 and 12. Sometimes find about half an hour, 45 minutes to work out, and
Sure.
so that's kind of sorted out. Glitch calls pretty much go on through that. I have twice a week when I record. At max for Advertising is Dead. So I have clear slots on 2 days in the week when I try to schedule in the Advertising is Dead recordings, which is generally in the afternoons, like
Sure.
between 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. And the vlogs happen when I have an extra hour during the week or on the weekend.
So then you're working till like evening. Is there a cutoff time for glitch to take rest then?
Thankfully, I haven't been stretched on calls beyond 6 p.m. unless it's absolutely required in recent times. Also, because my part of the business has become a little more structured. My role has become a lot more structured within Glitch as well.
Also, you have a fantastic CEO.
I have a fabulous CEO who takes care of a lot of the heavy lifting in that sense of the word. So, and I'm actually, interestingly enough, what I do at Glitch has become a lot more process focused, right? So
Sure.
when I say I look after the production business at Glitch, I actually focus a lot on how we kind of bring tech in, how we bring workflows in. I work with the rest of the agencies on that. So it is seemingly like, I was saying this today to someone. I was on a Clubhouse chat and I said it's almost like the difference between not even Bruce Wayne and Batman. It's that whole Superman and Clark Kent thing. Like Clark Kent's really like, the day job is very like sorted. It's like a segmented part of my day. I actually stopped working at night. I hang out with Pooja and Leia till they go to bed. They go to bed quite early, which is about 8:30, 9-ish. They both end up sleeping off. So I then sit and read. I read most days a physical book. And I'm in bed by 10:30, 11. That's pretty much most of my days.
So and then so basically evening time is the family time.
Evening time is my time and morning time as well.
Interesting. But when do you do the thinking job? Like, or is it like
That's all the time.
Of course, but do you feel the need to like, just put yourself a little away from everything and then saying, okay, too many things, going on, and I need to say plan or say think, or sometimes, even for writing you need thinking.
Yeah.
That thinking time, dedicated thinking time.
So what I actually do, and I found this to be a method that works for me, and I feel that that's a method. Everybody has their own methods in that sense, but so for instance, for the podcast, if it's a guest-based one, I actually try to do a 15-minute pre-chat with all my guests. Try and schedule that out. In most times, sometimes it doesn't work out, but most times I do that. Or thankfully, someone from their team will send some information across which they'd want to kind of focus on, and I'll build on top of that. So a lot of research for guests doesn't really take up time.
Yeah.
On the rest of the stuff, I always have a lot of scribbles put down. So sometimes some idea will come to me because I consume content through the day. When there are gaps, I listen to a podcast. I'll be reading something. At a point in time, I'm trying to read about 3 to 4 books because I can't seem to unless there's a book that really latches onto me. Right? I'm reading Guy Raz's How I Built This. right now, which is like I also was very fascinated to see how a podcast can become a book. I love the format he's taken with it. So I'm actually only focusing on that right now. There's normally at least there are 3 books happening. So all of those kind of give me ideas. So whenever I get something, my notes app, and I have about 3 notebooks for separate things. I have one notebook for the creator side, one notebook for the book, and one notebook for which is actually my journal. And I have my notes scribbled everywhere over there. So before I'm writing or anything like that, I have something to refer to at most times.
Yeah.
There'll be screenshots somewhere. There'll be voice memos actually sometimes. I realized once I can get a podcast, you just keep doing voice memos. So I have folders of voice memos on the phone.
Sure.
Go back to that sometimes. So most times there is no lack of inspiration, if that's the term. And I also use some apps that really help me out. There's some apps I've realized over time that are just genuinely great to kind of store information. I use one called Readwise. Readwise is a great app. Basically, it syncs with your Kindle, and whatever you've highlighted, it stores those highlights. And every day it throws 10 highlights at you. It's almost like a daily notification that comes and it shows you 10 highlights. So you almost
Kindle shows you highlights, but I didn't know about this thing. It's quite interesting.
It has one hack in it, which I've actually found to be the most useful part, is that you can add something called supplemental books, which means that if you read a certain book, it will throw highlights from books you haven't read but are similar to the kinds you have highlighted before.
Very interesting.
So in many cases, it makes me go look for that book.
Yeah.
And also gives me a new highlight which I might not know about. I also subscribed to something called Next Big Idea.
Yeah, you told me about
which is just fabulous. Right? Next Big Idea is like one of the I think it's just gold. If you look at the people who started it, like you have Malcolm Gladwell, Adam Grant, Daniel Pink. It's like a A-list, Susan Cain. They just feature great non-fiction books, and they have the authors talk about 5 key takeaways from the book. Give you a link to buy off Amazon from there as well. So sometimes I just take a key takeaway from there. A lot of my newsletters actually inspired from key takeaways from that app. Which is I also very clearly say it's an excerpt. I haven't read the book. In most times, just for like, make sure someone doesn't tell me that how many books do you read. I'm like, I don't read all these books. I'm reading a lot of excerpts. And I feel that sometimes you don't necessarily have to read the entire book.
Actually, highlights I feel is like the best way to learn, because the moment you keep going back, and I think Kindle's kind of changed the way we read 100%. Or learn or whatever.
Although weirdly enough, I've started to gravitate slowly towards at least partly reading physical books from time to time. I use this nice old school yellow highlighter which I carry around and have. And those tags you can add into the books and stuff. So I find it to be a lot of fun to do that. It's something nice about the analog process to pull in. So so it's all these are like tiny 10-15 minute slots through the day. I try to keep gaps of like 15 minutes between meetings if I can. Some days I can't, some days I can. Thankfully, some days meetings get cancelled. So instead of going and watching Netflix, I'll sit and work on something. So my content consumption has gone down a lot on that front. I don't watch as many shows. I have a few shows I know will not miss. Like I finished Loki's finale yesterday. As soon as it came out, I will watch Family Man 2 as soon as it comes out. So some shows I will watch. But do I have to watch everything? Not necessarily. That's more like evening time. If me and Pooja want to watch a movie, we watch a movie together. So that's more my space.
In fact, that was my next question. That when you're consuming so much of and I sometimes, and this is more of experience, personal experience, when you're consuming so much of information and you're learning and all of that, there comes a time it's like, bas, ab mujhe gyan nahi lena hai, and then I want to watch crap. Or I want to be entertained, if I have to put it there. That's when I move to Korean dramas. So
for me, that's YouTube actually.
Yeah.
It's shorter. I don't have to worry about a series. So YouTube actually... There was a time I'd actually stopped going to YouTube as much, which was like a few years ago. But in recent times, like YouTube's become like a great place for me to kind of go to. Maybe it's all the algorithms, right? The good part about the algorithm is that the more you watch a certain kind of content, more of that stuff comes at you. So that's been great. My problem with shows is I've never been a binge watcher. I can do like 2 to 3 episodes that are short, and then I'm like, if it makes me want to come back, I'll come back. I'm great with movies, But I somehow can't, like, binge watching has never been something I could do. The only time I
So-
binge watched was years ago when 24 used to be 24 episodes and you had to watch them in 24 hours, which is a thing, but
Yeah.
much younger.
So, but basically, your entertainment time or whatever entertainment content has gotten limited
Yeah, it's
Uh,
and on purpose.
on purpose.
On
Sure.
weekends, I watch whatever I want to watch most times.
Which is Sundays.
Even Saturdays aren't that bad. Like if you look at
Yeah.
it, my newsletter goes out. It has to hit people's inboxes on Saturday morning. So I don't technically have anything to do on Saturday and Sunday. And the afternoons, if we're not watching something, I'll go in and maybe work on the book or work on some pieces. I generally try to do my Varun Dugi show recording sometimes on a Sunday evening instead of doing the week. So in essence, it isn't as hectic as it might sound. But I guess also because if you scribble enough stuff around the place and you're not trying to figure out what your content has to be about, it becomes far easier. I think that's the main process. If that you can do constantly through the day, then the actual creation is like I shoot my vlogs in like an hour. Like I do 2 vlog shoots in an hour because I have a camera set up in place, I have lights ready. So I figured a way to make it faster.
Sure. But tell me, in all of this, so there's work, there's whatever, thinking, exercise, reading, all of that. Where does people come in? Like your socializing and all of that. Like how do you? I know, of course, we've been living in the pandemic, so it's gotten cut down to considerable extent.
Yeah.
But do you feel, because you're doing also so much of creative work, right? One, do you feel the lack of it, and you feel that because of which, it's difficult to kind of get inspired or whatever that term is?
No, for sure. One thing I do miss is just physically catching up with people. Have a lot more like WhatsApp group chats and like once in a while catch up. Thankfully, Rohit lives upstairs, so through this entire
Easier.
pandemic, I've had like literally friend family upstairs, so we can just like go 1 floor up, 1 floor down. Do meet friends on and off. But I mean, honestly, I think over the years there used to be the standing joke that if Varun had an option, he wouldn't go beyond a 1 kilometer radius from where he lives. But I can also kind of fluctuate the opposite direction as well very easily. So it's not as big a deal in my head. I do miss going out, but sometimes I have the option to leave the house to just go upstairs on the roof, and I don't do that. So it's not a big deal as long as I stay in touch. So I'm very open to being in touch digitally.
Sure.
I love to meet people in person, but it's not a deal breaker in the short term for me. In the long term, it's a deal breaker for me.
Sure. But Varun, I think, okay, let me ask you. This is a personal question, and I'm asking a lot of it because probably I'm in a very early stage of the journey. Probably you're taking, right? Do you not get, like, there are days when I feel that, oh my God, like because of this sudden explosion of information, infotainment, also that need to learn so much and do better, and people like you and me who are literally trying to add so many new things to what they are doing, what their core jobs are, right? Suddenly I do feel overwhelmed, right? Even if you're not doing multiple things, as someone who's in a normal job, or as someone who's learning early stage of their career and all of that, you do get overwhelmed कि मैं क्या सीखूं, कहाँ से सीखूं, right? How do you figure that, like how do you manage that feeling of over, and beyond a point what happens is then you end up giving, saying like just leave it and जो होगा देखा जाएगा types, right? I'm not going to get into that, pressurize myself into that bandwagon of learning or whatever. How do you manage that feeling of getting overwhelmed?
I mean, that's almost a constant problem, right?
Yeah.
The only thing I feel like I end up doing on autopilot now is advertising is dead, because I have a flow now doing it for so long that it's more about programming the right guests than everything else, and that thankfully the IBM guys help out on a lot.
Yeah.
And so that, apart from that, everything else I tend to take a break. Like even if my newsletter is something I can't write every week, you figure ways to make it less of a strain on yourself. So initially I would, for instance, try to write like 700-800 word newsletter every week, and now it's like 200 words, 250 words at max, right? I also once a month I only put recommendations. I don't even write the newsletter because I also feel people enjoy that part a lot. So you find ways to make sure there's some value going to your audience, but also you give yourself a break. So 200 words is not high pressure compared to, let's say, 1,000 words. which I feel most people try to write in a newsletter. So that's one way. The second way is take a break. People appreciate it if you're honest with them, saying you want to take a break for some time. My newsletter goes on a break very often. I just write everyone an email saying I'm taking a pause, and I'm just reassessing stuff. I'm going to come back. The Varun Dugi show did the same thing. Through May, generally brain did not function because of what was happening around us, and I couldn't come up with stuff. So I literally said that the show's going on a break for a few weeks, and it's fine. In the long term of creating content, if you're open about the fact that, okay, I'm taking a break to figure my process out, to get my head on straight, to do some of the pieces that I need to do to make my content better, the audience does stay. It's not that big a deal. I feel the worry is this entire
algorithm.
It's also I think innately we have the FOMO, right? We want the numbers to be a certain way and all that stuff. But if you're looking at it, I want to figure out how I can do this for the next 3-4 years and it hitting a certain mark. A few weeks or a month here and there will not make a difference. That's actually why a lot of people do seasons on podcasts. I've realized they want to take that 2 months off, 3 months off in a year. Just kind of think about it. Like I know I took my first 1 month break from Advertising Is Dead after 100 episodes. I wish I'd done breaks in between as well. It would have made me tweak some things which I have tweaked over time much faster. So every couple of months, like you should honestly like I'm planning to take at least 3 odd weeks off very soon because I just generally want to take a break from things. Although this time what I've done is I've banked more, so some of the content will still kind of go out. And sometimes you don't feel like it. Like I haven't put out my workout reels in a while. It's been a few weeks because I just haven't felt like putting them out. I've just been focusing on the workout and not necessarily how to shoot it.
Yeah.
It's something everybody goes through.
Yeah.
It's interesting you asked me this because literally before this I was watching a video of one of my favorite YouTubers. Right, his name is Matt Diavella. Matt Diavella is this. I think he comes under the productivity YouTuber space. I don't know what to call him. So he's a filmmaker. He's one of the guys who shot all the minimalism documentaries you'll find on Netflix. He's been the director and DOP for those. Okay. So he runs a YouTube channel which I found because I found it very interesting. Like he would do experiments with himself. Saying I gave up caffeine for a month and this is what happened. Or like I took a cold shower for 3 months every day, no hot showers. But over time his content also evolved beyond that. He has a podcast. He has a bunch of other stuff. So he put out a video, and this guy's like got a high number of subscribers, very, very, popular. And he said he felt the strain of saying, "Am I creating content because I want to or because I need to?"
Yeah.
The day it goes to the need to, you need to figure a way to pull back. So he said he used to put out a YouTube video every week. He went down to 2 videos a week to almost like once a month, and that made him find his mojo back. And he said, literally walk away from it. Figure a way to kind of find inspiration, and then you'll come back to it. And in the long term, the audience won't go away.
I think it's interesting because a lot of friends who are artists or creators, when I speak to them, who've kind of slightly evolved in the journey, who've been doing it for this thing, there's a term that a lot of them have used and which I've constantly, I think, found relatable is being detached to the content that you put up, right? And being detached to that process. Like a lot of them keep saying that this is not what my complete life is and I will do it because I feel like doing. But I guess it takes time. However, I think when I was asking you about the feeling of overwhelming, right? Being overwhelmed, I think I meant more from a learning perspective, that there is so much to learn, right? So for example, in my case, even after X number of years in the business, right? I suddenly, like the last 1.5 years, I feel like something inside me has changed where I want to learn more. Maybe it's also because of the information overload that we have, right? That I want to learn more. I want to add this as a skill. I want to do this. This feeling is a lot more very overwhelming. We're all talking about is pandemic mein, and I did an entire episode with Raj Nayak where we spoke about this is the best time to learn, etc. Right? But you do get overwhelmed. And I want to ask that how do you structure that feeling ki, acha, itna seekhna hai, itna karna hai, ye bhi seekhna hai, ye bhi sakna hai. You do sometimes tend to lose it, right? How do you structure that overwhelming feeling?
So I've always been an Entu cutlet. So for me, the problem is a little... I don't know if it's different, but I feel that... So for me, the problem always was that I like to consume a wide array of things. I can't do one thing.
Sure.
And the problem was always finding an audience in the sense like, after a point in time, your mom or your wife will tell you, just stop
You
talking.
get bored.
Like, stop
Yeah.
showing me that phone. Stop telling me about an article. Stop shoving a podcast on my face. And like my mother very recently said that at some point I'm finding it tough to keep track with it because she very sweetly consumes everything I put out. She said at some point it's
Our
getting tough to
parents too.
consume everything that you are putting out. I'm like, I get it. I don't even know why you're still trying.
Yeah.
But what I have realized is that if you stick to consuming the same kind of content or creating the same kind of content, that's when you feel a lot more overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
advertising is dead, right? If I'd stuck to just talking about advertising, marketing, and branding, I would have at some point just like, the overwhelmness also comes from feeling stagnated, at least in some extent. At least that's how it works for me. So I kept evolving the show. Now it's a lot more business, a lot more startups, and etc. And I focus on that aspect a lot. On the other side of it, honestly, sometimes you need to have periods when you don't consume anything.
Yeah.
There's this interesting thing I read the other day which said that at some point, because of the amount of content we consume, we've forgotten how to be bored. And boredom is actually one of the key points of inspiration. And one of the key things I'm like, weirdly enough consuming now is about like I've gone like deep health and that science of things. My father will be happy. I never wanted to be a doctor, but somehow seem to be reading a lot more about these things now. So when we daydream when our frontal cortex has time to think. So which is why when you do mundane tasks, why do the best ideas come in the shower? Why do they come when you're doing the dishes? All that stuff is because that's when this frontal cortex gets activated. So you think about the past, you obsess over the future. Also, one of the deepest roots of anxiety, because as you start thinking about these things, anxiety comes in as well. So it's that moment when you actually get to think of the ideas that come to you, and it's at that time, and when you sleep, is when when those things come, you should be almost make mental notes and hopefully physical notes of them. So it's a great thing to just be bored.
Actually, that practice it has helped me a lot. Taking notes.
Yeah, so much.
I mean, I'm sure you'll relate to it.
Which is why the journaling helps, right? If you wake up in the morning, first thing in the morning, if you journal, what you dreamt about, in many ways, again, I went deep science. So I went like, what is the difference between non-REM sleep and REM sleep? And I find the REM sleep part very interesting because that's when you actually dream, when your rapid eye movement happens under your eyelids. And that's when your brain's really at like, it's at peak, like, there's so much happening there. So when you wake up, it's kind of, a lot of the stuff is fresh in your mind. And you put that down, that's when the best ideas are really popped into your head because your brain's kind of, I call it cleansing the RAM of your CPU. Weird geeky term to use, but fair enough.
Yeah, interesting. But tell me, so because you're learning so much and all of that, and for ease of a lot of my audience is a slightly younger audience, right? And they're all trying to learn, they're all trying to get better at whatever they're doing. When there is so much of learning out there for us to consume, how do you actually, what do you say? I mean, if that's the right word, how do you internalize that learning, right? How do you, so एक चीज होती है कि आप पढ़ो, you consume content, all of that. But how do you actually execute it? Or, I mean, how do you actually make sure that you're making use of it? What is your process for that?
So I actually don't. So, okay, here's how I put it. Find a few people whose content you want to consume and learn from. And in many times, just stick to that and look at the people they reference. So if, for instance, I found, let me think for an example. I discovered Adam Grant by finding his podcast first and then all his books. And through his books, I found many other pieces who he was connected. I remember he went as a guest on Pivot, which is Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway's podcast. That's how I found that podcast. Through that, I found Scott Galloway. So the good part is there's this book called, I think it's in Show Your Work, if I remember right, but it says build your own family tree of consumption, where you're saying, okay, these are like 1-2 people I really want to consume from. Don't have to go to 100 people all the time. You feel overwhelmed when you hear too many voices. Focus on a few, many times even reread or reconsume what they're putting out there. And then through that, find almost a pipeline of more people, but keep refining that. You don't have to consume everything all the time, which is I have an issue with, let's say, for instance, breaking news. I think breaking news, the problem is it's always there. So I don't read slightly more well-written, well-researched articles in that sense. So always keep pruning out what you consume. And from there, how do you remember it? Is that if you have lesser things that you consume from, you also over time either make mental notes or you need to have a system of remembering, which is either you take notes yourself, you find a way to share it. Because I feel like many times when you're trying to verbalize or put down what you've learned, you tend to retain it better. So there's this thing they say that if you actually write physically on a piece of paper versus typing it out, your brain remembers it, because in many ways you're talking to your brain and telling it to remember things. So if you write it on physically, even if you want to take, which is that whole classroom notes things work, right? I mean, in hindsight, that was the whole point. If you write it down physically, pen on paper, your brain's retaining it far better than if you type it onto a laptop.
Same as with journaling, because you're actually processing.
Exactly. So that's the only way. And it's fine if you forget things, to be honest. Which is why you need to reread things from time to time. Like I have some of my favorite books which I go back to from time to time. I don't consume all podcasts in linear format. I'll sometimes find a guest I want to listen to.
Agreed.
So don't force yourself to overconsume. Just find the right set of people to consume, but and just stick to them and find newer ones and then refine that down. But keep like I'd say a finite number of sources of consumption.
So finite number of sources of consumption, rereading or re-referring to, and pruning down your content, this thing. So minimalism ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. There's actually an interesting system, right? This author called Ryan Holiday, whose books and content I consume a lot. Stoicism really, like, it's gotten me through the pandemic, to be honest. Like, it's one of those things which I've really turned back onto. I remember when I've read this one thing which said that focus on the things that you can control and not the stuff that is out of your control, which I think is so powerful, because we've been in a world where we have no control on so many things that as long as you can focus on what you have some level of control over.
We have no control on anything, actually.
Yeah, except for like a few things. Like we could pick it off like our hand and count that out. And so he has a system in which he writes his books, which is supremely analog, but it's so interesting. Is he physically makes these note cards. So whenever he finds something which he likes in a book, he physically writes it down on a note card and he files them basis categories into this big box. So when he's writing a book and he has to reference a story connected to something, he goes back to that box and he finds how, like almost like filing cabinets, he's filed them out.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even remember it. He's literally almost made his own version of referencing. And he has a video of that on YouTube, which is, I thought that's like hardcore. Like I don't think I would ever be able to do that much. But he reads his really like large books and philosophy and everything else and stories, but he's really been able to file that out, which is why he writes a book a year. Which is, I think, is like, it's madness, right? He's done like 10 to 11 books now over the last decade. And he can only do that because he has this system. Like he keeps filing, referring to that, and that's how he just fills in the gaps.
Very interesting. I think it's also got to do, like, I find the guy very interesting because of the entire philosophy that he's taken to unnerve, right? Stoicism and for Greek philosophers se pata nahi kaun se philosophers ne, I think they've tried to unravel it through history and all of that, which is very, very interesting.
And he's figured a way to, in a modern sense, really present it to an audience. I think is great, right?
Simpler form.
Like ancient philosophy, he's found a way to make it relatable. And he's an advertising guy, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So his first book, I think, was called "Stop It, I Am Lying" or something like that. His first couple of books are focused more on like marketing. He wrote like a book on growth hacking, growth marketing. One more, I think, on the whole Gawker controversy that happened. And then he suddenly wrote one book on Stoicism. And now that's become his thing. But interestingly enough, he also runs a brand consultancy, which is still which I think, I don't know how much time he spends on that, but it is a part of what he does, which I find very intriguing that this guy also does that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent, Gary Vee is also trying to do similar stuff.
Gary Vee is a very different animal. In the sense, okay, let me put it this way. Now, this is where I think the content part is about balancing out how much you consume of one person.
Yeah.
I can't do Gary Vee all the time. I used to be a person who used to consume a lot of Gary Vee. And he even says that you shouldn't consume my content all the time because he repeats a lot of stuff.
He's just repackaging, I mean, a lot of stuff, repurposing
fabulous
what he
businessman.
says.
Knows how to kind of get things. What he's doing with NFTs right now, in hindsight, people might just say was much before its time, great timing.
Yeah.
at some point I feel it's become a little too much, at least for me to consume. Because my worry with hustle culture primarily, and the reason why people get overwhelmed today, why a 18-year-old wants to suddenly have everything achieved before they're 19, or that people want to do everything now, and it's all like hustle. Again, I'm going back to sleep because someone said this, that when people say that I'll sleep when I'm dead, is what they say, right? With the whole hustle culture thing, that sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when
every
I'm
minute
dead.
is important,
And they're like, if
all
you
of that
sleep when
stuff.
you're dead, you will die sooner because you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
Right. So at some point, I think we're coming to that level now across the world where it's all like I totally pro unhustle, right? In hindsight, because I feel that the more we're pushing people to hustle and to say you need it now, the more it's just going to become, people are going to get more overwhelmed. Anxiety will go up. Failure will also be looked at as something like, as much as we say failure is a stepping stone to success and all that stuff, you also need time to process things between failures. And if we don't do that, you're just going to keep running. And at some point, you're just going to be so exhausted, you won't know what to do.
Interesting. Okay, I think we've spoken a lot. I can go on and on asking you too many questions, but on slightly very philosophical question or whatever, slightly more broader question. But if you have to advise a 20-year-old, right, who's just starting with a job, who's exposed with a lot of information, but who has the potential or can build the potential of doing things and things beyond, because we all know, we've all been saying that you have the potential to do things beyond the job or whatever. What is your advice, or I don't know, I mean, what is your advice to a 20-year-old to become better at what he's doing in life, in career? How do you look at it?
Find one thing that that will get you financial freedom.
Sure.
And on the side, make sure that at some point you're figuring a way to, everyone doesn't have to be a content creator, but find a way to express the stuff that you would do for no money. They don't necessarily have to be the same thing. And I feel that's really important to think about, is that you don't have to find your passion early on and focus only on that. And sometimes you find your passions much later on in life. Also takes away the pressure of, like, I found mine at like 37, 38.
Same.
But focus on something that gives you financial independence. I wish I had looked at it that way in my early 20s. I had a very terrible early 20s, just from like how I did not focus on career, failed continuously, went through many, and very by chance somehow got into a mass comm college, and that's kind of where my turning point happened and all that stuff. But do the work in your 20s and really try stuff out. The best thing about the 20s is you get to try stuff out in your career. You get to explore areas which you don't know about. Like, if I count my 20s, I worked in a call center. I worked as a promoter in a bar. I have my call center was great though. Very interesting experience. I've worked for AOL cancellations for many months. I worked at MTV as a production assistant, producer. Have produced almost all kinds of shows that they had and Channel V had. At Glitch itself, over the last 12 years, I've had so many different roles, from handling backend to content to directing to randomly sitting in a promo shoot where they couldn't get an actor. So I'm the guy with his boxers down, sitting on a commode of all things. Try stuff out, and if you keep trying stuff out, you will find things that you really enjoy which you didn't know about. Like, I didn't think I would enjoy writing as much as I do. So I think that financial independence part is very important. And if you believe that you being a creator today is going to give you financial independence, try that out. But on the side, also make sure you have a backup plan. I feel that at some point we forget that you need a backup plan for that. And if you actually study the creator economy, and I have been trying to do that, and if you look at the articles, it became a creator economy because creators realized they could start businesses connected to them being creators, which is in essence, the new small business is a creator business. So eventually comes back to the set of things. So if you have experience in business, you have experience in doing stuff as part of a job or a career, you will actually do far better as a creator in the long run than you will the other way around. So just, you don't need to do it. You don't have to do everything in your life in your 20s. Somebody actually tweeted this today, and I thought that's a fabulous tweet. They said that everyone talks about I want to hit success fast. उसके बाद क्या करोगे? Which is true. Like everyone wants to succeed and
Yeah.
get everything right now. She's like, what are you going to do after that? And like, that's so true.
I think most importantly, what I've learned through, especially in the last like 6-7 years of uh, being, doing all sorts of things, doing some fabulous work, all of that, then turning an entrepreneur, and now doing all of this, right? I think the most important part in all of this is, does it make you happy? Do you
Yeah.
enjoy the journey now? Right?
Yeah.
Forget about कि मैं इस position पे पहुंच जाऊंगा या उस position पे, I'm going to reach there, and all of that is all. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. This is something Tanmay said on my podcast, right? And I that's one of my favorite pieces. Like that episode for me is one of my favorite episodes of all time. But this one thing he said, he asked me this question. He said, "What would you do for the rest of your life for no money?"
Yes.
And I said, "I'll podcast." And he said, "And that's something you should continue to do. It doesn't necessarily have to earn you money. You can do that and build a career elsewhere." And you will do it because it makes you happy. You're not doing it because it makes you money. If it makes you money, great. That's a great add-on. It doesn't have to. I mean, if you can do both together, that's great. But bring yourself to the point when the switch doesn't make it tough on you or your family and everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. This is so interesting. And I think every part of it I could relate, because probably going through that early stages of that journey myself. I mean, it's been 7-8 months now for the podcast, and hoping, I think for me, the podcast has been more of, while I'm enjoying, but there's so much of learning involved while, I get some really fabulous guests and talk to them.
Being a podcaster is like having weekly learning sessions and therapy sessions all in one, is what I...
Oh, 100%. I mean, the amount of women I've spoken to, it's interesting because the name of the podcast came because I had so much to ask, right? Women. I said, chalo, isko podcast mein convert kar dete hain. Being an agent, all your life you have done is packaged content. So I said, chalo, let me try and do it myself. And now and this is where pivoting happened. Now after having spoken to 15 women, I realized this is not just women, this is also men. And it's interesting because, Varun, you and Pooja are the first probably couple who've come on my podcast and who've spoken actually about the same subject, both from a man and a woman perspective. So I'm hoping, I can do some flow charting and create notes and see if there are similarities or dissimilarities, if there's a word like that.
We complete the picture, I guess, in many ends.
Yes. So I'm so glad, you could give me time and we could, just generally chat.
Yeah, I'm so happy we did this. I always feel like when I do these chats, it makes me think about a lot of stuff which I haven't verbalized, but somehow end up verbalizing in a podcast. So thank you for this.
I hope I was able to ask you the right kind of questions, which could probably help a lot more people.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this. Thanks, Adanaj.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Vijay. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please make sure you hit the like button, comment what was your favorite part, and also subscribe to the channel. We have lots of fantastic people coming up. This podcast is available on your podcast app by the name Questions I Wanted to Ask. You can also follow me on social media for more updates, short format content. Links will be in the description.